Hello everyone, welcome back to another Star Wars Destiny video. Continuing going through the rest of the Awakening set, we are now on Scavenge, Yellow Hero event. Cost 0, so you get to play it for free. Discard the top 3 cards of your deck, and then you may add an upgrade or support from your discard pile to your hand. I've played against this in a couple decks. One of the notable decks I played it against, or in it, was Hyperloop. So I discarded the Millennium Falcon from the guy's hand, and he was able to, on a future turn, play Scavenge to get the Falcon back. Downside is you do have to discard 3 cards to do it, but also an interesting thing about it is once you play Scavenge, you discard those cards, and it's a then event. So you discard the cards first, and then you get to pull one of these supports or upgrades back. So if you have the support or upgrade in your discard pile, you can play this. I mean, there's no reason not to if you don't have a support or upgrade in there, really. But play this, discard 3 cards, and then if one of the 3 cards you discarded is maybe a better support or a better upgrade than the one that you were initially trying to scavenge out of your discard pile, you can also get that card back too. So let's say there was like a lightsaber in my discard pile that I wanted, and let's say I have the Millennium Falcon in my deck still, I can scavenge, discard the top 3. If it's one of them is a Millennium Falcon, I can actually use scavenge to get that one back as well. So it doesn't have to be something that was already in the discard pile before you played scavenge. If you mill off a supporter upgrade, you can actually get that one back too. So that's scavenge. We're going to move on to our next card. We are now on shoot first. One resource, yellow hero event, has ambush, so you get to take an additional action after you use this card. So if you're playing it in a deck with Han, you're going to get a shield off of ambush. And what this does is resolve one of your yellow dice showing range damage, then remove an opponent's die showing range damage as well. So you're not only just getting the second action out of ambush, you're able to manipulate their dice a little bit too. So they have, let's say, a 1 range damage showing a +2 range damage and a +2 range damage, and you have a range damage showing, you can play shoot first, resolve your 1 range damage or your 1 range damage die, and then remove their 1 range damage die as well. So now they're sitting on modified results that they're not able to use. And then again, after you do all that, there's another action you can take. So you can resolve one of your dice, remove one of theirs, and then resolve the rest of your dice on your next, on your free action from ambush. And of course, you gotta love this card because it's, Han shot first, for real. So that shoot first, we're gonna move into our next card. All right, now we are on Smuggling, 0 resources. Spot a yellow character and discard a card from your hand to gain 1 resource. This works really well with Scavenge. So if you need, let's say you have 2 resources, you need that 1 extra resource, that 3rd resource to play something like a DL44. You can play Smuggling, and you just have to have a yellow character still alive to do it. So you spot your yellow character, you discard a card from your hand, gain 1 resource. Let's say you even discarded the DL44 from your hand. You get the extra resource needed to pay for it, and then on your next turn, you play Scavenge, discard the top 3 cards of your deck, you get your DL44 back. Or you just discard something that you don't want to use currently. Let's say it's a more expensive upgrade, like a Millennium Falcon or something. You play Smuggling, discard your Millennium Falcon, get your 1 resource. Next turn, play your DL44. Future turn, Scavenge to get the Falcon back, and so on. So Scavenging does require you to discard a card, but if you were running a deck with some more expensive upgrades, like upgrades that cost maybe 3 or more, it's a good way to get a resource that you might not be able to get otherwise. So that's Smuggling. We're going to move into our next card. And speaking of ways to get extra resources, we are now on Play the Odds. This is a support actually, so 1 resource. As an action, you can exhaust it to reroll one of your yellow dice. If it rolls on a resource, you gain 1 resource. So let's say you exhaust this, you reroll one of your yellow dice, lands on a resource, you get a resource, and then on another turn you can resolve that resource die, and get another resource. So essentially, you can get 2 resources for 1 die if that's the case, or you can also just get your 1 resource that you need, play something on a future turn, discard to reroll. So it's essentially a guaranteed resource if you roll a resource dice using Play the Odds. You can either get 2 resources out of it, or you can also just re-roll something in the future. It's also just nice if you rolled a blank, you can re-roll it. Even if you don't get the resource, you can still maybe get a better result than something like a blank. That's Play the Odds. We're going to move into our next card. All right, we are now on Street Informants, zero cost support. It has Ambush, so you get your second additional action after you play it. And also, as an action, you can exhaust the support to look at an opponent's hand. So you exhaust it, you get to see your hand, possibly see what you're up against. Currently, I don't really think looking at your opponent's hand um, is super beneficial. Even in like something like a mill deck, you get to see their hand, but then when you resolve a mill die, they're still going to shuffle their hand in front of you, and you're going to have to pick a card randomly. So there's no guarantee that you're going to discard the card that you really want them to discard. Um, I can see people using this in Han decks currently, just because it is a zero cost ambush. So Han gets a shield for zero, and then you get an additional action. That could be useful, but I don't see how looking at somebody's hand currently is going to be super beneficial because um, the way the meta is currently, if you're playing it, let's say you're playing against a Django and Veers deck, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what's in their hand just based on if you look up Django and Veers deck lists online. You know, they're probably going to be holding something like a Commanding Presence, something like holdout blasters, jetpacks, possibly backup muscle, things like that. They're going to be running a lot of aggro cards. So even without having to see, like, without seeing their hand, if you are playing against them, you have a pretty good idea already of what you're going to play against. If you're playing against Kylo and Django, you know it's going to be a lot of melee damage, probably some control cards and like stuff like that. I don't know in Spirit of Rebellion if this will be made better. Maybe there'll be a card you can pair with this, so you can exhaust this to look at somebody's hand, and then maybe there's like a character that has an ability that states like name a card, point it out in their hand, and if it's the named card, they discard it and lose some health or something like that. I don't really know, but currently I don't really see the usefulness of Street Informants aside from it's a free shield on Han if you use it with him. We're going to move into our next card. And finally, tonight we are looking at Second Chance. It's an upgrade ability. 3 resources, a yellow character only. Before the attached character would be defeated, instead, heal 5 damage from it and discard this upgrade from play. People are using this essentially to keep characters like Han alive. So what this does is, they have it on there. Let's say I have 9 damage on Han, so he can take 1 more damage. Let's say my opponent only has 1 range damage showing. They shoot Han. They technically would kill Han. But what you do then is you discard Second Chance. You discard that, and you heal 5 damage off of Han. So Han has 10 damage on him as he went from 9 to 10. So now Han basically has 5 health. So he's only taken 5 damage. I like using Han because his health is a nice even number. Overkill, from what I've read, does not spill over, so a character can't actually exceed damage beyond their number. So if they're showing, somebody is showing 2 range damage and a +2 range damage, and Han is at 9 health, they can't resolve it for 4. They can technically resolve it for 4. Resolve it, Han still only goes up to 10. Second chance would trigger, discarding it, having him come back at 5. So Han doesn't go from 9 to 10, 11, 12, 13 damage with 4 because you can't go above the hit points on a character. You can get around this if you resolve dice individually. So again, if Han is at 9 health and you have a 1 range damage showing, a 2 range damage showing, and a +3 range damage showing, you can resolve the 1 damage to bring him to 10, triggering Second Chance, which gets discarded. Then Han has 5 health. You can then resolve the 2 range damage and the +3 range damage to do 5 damage, which would then kill him. People are using this in decks with a Starship Graveyard. So what they're doing is attaching it to a character. When it triggers, they're discarding it, healing the health and all that, claiming the battlefield, getting Second Chance back, drawing it, and playing it again. So Starship Graveyard essentially lets you cycle Second Chance over and over again to almost make some characters undefeatable. So that's why when you're resolving dice, you just need to resolve them carefully, so you're not wasting damage. Like I said, if you resolve one range damage on him to trigger second chance, and you have 5 range damage left over, you can then use that. If you go all in on your range damage when he only has 1 health left, that extra damage won't spill over. So that second chance, we're going to be back again tomorrow with another video. Remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. I want to thank you again for watching. Take care.